This program that you have, I feel like can be so beneficial if the person comes into it with that open mindset of what can this show me? It's not a judgmental thing. It's just what can this show me that I can use then to go back to my crews or my team or whoever. My name is Rob Duplain. I'm an IBEW union electrician, currently filling the role of superintendent and working on primarily commercial, industrial, and utility substation projects throughout my career. So prior to becoming an electrician, I was a police officer, and a lot of the training that we did in police work was obviously interacting with people and having that communication, but it was all scenario based. And the academy and then ancillary training that you do at the department once you leave the academy experience was all scenario based. And I really felt like when you were kind of hitting that chord, it really connected that dot to me as to how in construction we miss that sometimes is that, practical application aspect. And I felt like the role play really nailed that. And I was really wanting to kind of dive into it more with you. And, the whole process did not disappoint. It definitely hit that metric for me. And I think the role play just really kind of gives that broader picture. It really gives people that framework where they're getting an operation system, not just a label. So I kind of had like somewhat of a framework going into it. But again, I'm a big proponent of the phrase old keys won't open new doors. And that's what this all was for me. And that's why I wanted to pursue it. So my kind of expectation going into it was I was going to get that broader scope that, is that, how you did that, how you filled all that in was, the mystery part. It felt very familiar to me. So it wasn't I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel like the process was judgmental. I felt like it was just me being me. There was no vague or ambiguous, ambiguous, type questions and answers that I was trying to make match, like on a personality assessment. It was just real time, real scenario, very similar experiences from, the career and experiences I've had, coming up through. So I just felt like it flowed well. The information was structured well. The interaction between, the role play and myself was great as well. So the whole thing was just, it was smooth. It was very just familiar. That's all. That's the word that it just keeps coming to my mind is familiar. Whereas the role play assessment, I felt like was you're getting a very large amount of information in a short amount of time because it's dynamic with the interaction between you and the person that's going through the assessment. So that part of it, I felt like is just it really lends well to being able to have the link that you've structured it for to be able to capture the maximum amount of information in that time frame. So I thought it was perfect. It was surprising. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be at all, but I was pleasantly surprised. It was a good surprise. You came across with the archetype for me, which was George Washington, which was, uh, surprising, humbling, and I appreciated it too. It was, to be, kind of linked together with that personality and that individual through history is you know that's a big shoulder to fill or to lean on, big shoes to fill. So that yeah, that part of it was definitely not something I didn't really think I was going to get, compared, but it definitely helped frame the assessment with having that kind of backdrop and that known figure to kind of prop yourself up against and look at those traits, and you kind of broke it down really well as far as hitting the highlights as to why that archetype is selected and what fits. And then as the document unfolds with the breakdown, it really kind of gives you that backdrop again, that framework to kind of look at and say, okay, I can see where this is fitting in based on, the criteria that you use to make that assessment from the role play. It all just kind of really meshed together well. Some of the blind spots, like you say, definitely was something that I appreciated. That again, my background, I played college football, grew up playing football. Film study is a big part of that. So I'm big on like, I want that evaluation. I want that critique. Don't just give me all the stuff I did right. I want to know where the areas are that I can tighten up and where do I need to have refinement. And I feel like the assessment for me was that film study that I always look for. And one of the things that you pointed out that I have a very stoic face and personality sometimes, and where that bodes well for me is good, and then when it doesn't, it definitely sends the wrong message. So being more cognizant and conscientious of my outward projection as I'm interacting with people is a huge part of it. And it's interesting because the assessment, with the George Washington archetype, it also found me as very relationship driven. And that's, I feel like, 100% true. So, couple that with sometimes my outward appearance doesn't always give the best relationship. It's kind of a dichotomy there. Making myself more aware of that interaction, that interface with them is the biggest takeaway that I felt like I had, which is, you know, relationships are so important to me, but that intention doesn't always get communicated, how that intention is internally. So just being very aware of that and, making more conscientious effort of that, I think is definitely where, that hit me square. Putting yourself in real time scenario where you're actually having to think on your feet and be aware of the outcome that you're trying to achieve in that isolated moment is, I think, where a lot of guys could really learn. And that assessment, that short time that we talked about, it really gives so much volume of information that I feel like no matter what level you're at, if you're just a foreman starting out and you're trying to learn how to run work, there's so much that you're being bombarded with at that level as you step into that for the first time. Being able to kind of also capture your outward resonance with other people and how you're interacting with, because the more that you step up and get into leadership and roles, you're removing yourself from the day-to-day operation, and you're really kind of just making sure that connection, that relationship is intact. Because when people feel seen and heard by their leadership, that's when the productivity, I feel like, goes up exponentially. Open to the fact that none of us have a full sight picture of you know how we are as leaders. That's something that should be understood as constantly in development and in progress for yourself. There's no perfection, and you should always be in an environment where you're trying to gather more information, make better assessments of yourself, evaluate, look at that film study, like I said, so to speak. And, this program that you have, I feel like can be so beneficial if the person comes into it with that open mindset of what can this show me? It's not a judgmental thing. It's just what can this show me that I can use then to go back to my crews or my team or whoever. So, all those things, but just being open-minded, I feel like, and I think that's the real key. This environment, I can assure you, I've been through it. I've done it with Mark, and it's not intimidating. It's not judgmental. It's 100% a tool that you can add to your arsenal of, how you operate, how you interact with your team. There's, I think, benefits to being a manager and being a leader. There's components that are, you know, beneficial to who you are and what your crew is on both aspects of that. And I think this uh, assessment provides that framework for you on both aspects.